Nimitz's force, led by Spruance, again, so we see Spruance had kind of gained a lot of credit, a lot of cred, I guess you want to call it that, in the Navy for his victory at Midway. Begins island hopping across the Central Pacific in November of 1943. First group of islands that will be attacked in this island hopping are the Marshall Islands. So here we see the Marshall Islands. Here's Hawaii. Here are the Marshalls. Okay, and so the first attack really takes place at an island called Tarawa from 20 to 23 November 1943. The next island is invaded in February 1944, is Kwajalein Atoll right here. Here's Tarawa, here's Kwajalein, and then the final one is Eniwetok right here, 17 to 24 February 1944. So you can see in some ways they're moving quite fast with this island hopping idea. So Marshall Islands taken by 1944, early winter 44. The next group, the Caroline Islands, down here. Specifically the island of Truk, which is there. Take a quick look if we zoom in. So here's the Caroline Islands, here's the island of Truk. That is taken in February 1944 as well. Moving on then to the Marianas Islands, right here. Guam, Saipan, and a place called Tinian, which is, I don't see it on this map. Okay, but that's the Marianas Islands. They're taken. Saipan is taken in June of 44, and you really see that this island is attacked with the largest naval amphibious force ever seen. Tinian is also taken in June of 1944. And during these invasions, the Japanese decide to launch an attack with their fleet. So they're finally back. 1944, Japanese fleet, 2 years after Midway, is finally back in action. And we see, so here you see the Marianas, Saipan, Tinian. But at the invasion of Tinian, again, prompts the Japanese fleet to come in to attack. And we have what is known as the Battle of the Philippine Sea, or the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, which takes place June 19th and June 20th, 1944. Why they call it the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot? Because the U.S. Navy shoots down 350 Japanese aircraft in 8 hours. It's probably the largest defeat for it is the largest defeat for the Japanese Navy during the war. And again, this is something that they're not going to easily recover from. So, for MacArthur, we see the invasion of the Philippines in 17 October 1944. You have the Battle of Leyte, which takes place on one of the southern islands of the Philippines. Remember, the Philippines is a huge island chain, right? So we take a look. Here are the Philippines. We see that really it's a very large island chain, okay? So the Battle of Leyte takes place here near Mindanao, the southernmost island, all right? And this battle on the land accompanies a naval battle known as the Battle of Leyte Gulf. How hard is history? I don't know, you ask me. Leyte Gulf is really the largest naval battle to take place in history up until that point. And it's also famous for it's the first time that the Allies see the Japanese suicide pilots, the kamikaze. The battle on land, Battle of Leyte, and the invasion actually lasts all the way into 1945, July, so almost near the end of the war. They're still kicking the Japanese out. But this is really the beginning of the end for them. Well, you could say even back to Midway. I guess it just depends on who you want to ask, right? So from air bases on Saipan and Tinian, United States is able to begin launching B-29 bomber raids against the Japanese homeland. One of these raids, March 9th, 1945, is a firebombing of Tokyo 279 B-29s and other U.S. aircraft bombed Tokyo using incendiary bombs, not high explosive bombs. And this sets off a firestorm that levels 16 square miles of the city and kills 100,000 civilians. Okay, so they're not messing around at this point. U.S. bombing campaign, however, over the Japanese homelands is often costly. Sometimes they're getting shot down, but the problem is that Saipan and Tinian are just a little too far. The Japanese homelands are just basically at the outside range of some of these bombers. So the United States decides that they need to get a base closer to the Japanese home islands. In February 1945, they launch an invasion of this small island called Iwo Jima. Iwo Jima was supposed to be a very quick 5-day campaign. Really easy. Just all you had to do was mop up the island, or mop up the Japanese defenders that were there. There weren't even that many there, it was thought. So it would be very quick and simple. And with Iwo Jima, they could build this base that would give them this closer airstrip to Tokyo. Well, 21,000 Japanese hold off 60,000 U.S. Marines for a whole entire month. Okay, this was supposed to be a 5-day battle, and it lasts for 30 days. It's very bloody. Any accounts that you might read of it or hear about will always, I think, probably emphasize the brutality of this battle. The Japanese, it's a volcanic island, and the Japanese had essentially dug in very deep with bunkers and tunnels underneath the volcanic rock all throughout the island, and again, it takes them a month to clear this island out. Finally, March-June 1945, the Battle of Okinawa, last amphibious invasion of the war. The island itself would then serve as a launch point for the invasion of the Japanese homeland, which they very much figured they were going to have to fight. So here is Okinawa. Here. So you can see the relationship here, very close to the Japanese home islands. Okinawa is, again, a horrible battle, much like Iwo Jima, with Japanese forces dug in deeply, not wanting to give up. You see civilians jumping off cliffs because these are Japanese citizens, thinking that the United States is going to come in and kill and rape and burn and pillage the entire population, the entire civilian population. This isn't true, but there is footage online if you want to see it of these people, women with their children in their arms jumping off cliffs to their deaths. You see suicide banzai charges by the Japanese against American forces on the island. And I think in some ways it's the brutality of Okinawa and what they see happening there that is going to lead to the decision to use the atomic bomb. Operation Olympic. This is the plan for the American invasion of the Japanese homeland. It's scheduled to begin in the fall of 1945, and planners figure it's not going to end until sometime in 1947. The projections are high, upwards of 1 million casualties, if not more. So they're really, nobody's really thrilled about this Operation Olympic. The invasion of the Japanese homeland is going to be brutal. It's going to be nasty. And other things are coming into play. The Soviet Union, now that Germany has surrendered, is ready to enter the war against Japan itself. So the idea of facing the loss of at least 1 million men and or sharing Japan with the Russians, because that's what Stalin had planned on doing. He was going to launch his own invasion of Japan. And, as we'll see, wherever Soviet troops are at the end of the war, Soviet troops tend to stay. So the U.S. doesn't want to see this happen. They're already seeing it happen a little bit in Europe. So faced with this choice, 1 million casualties, sharing Japan with the Soviets, and remember, the United States has borne the brunt of the war in the Pacific, pretty much on its own. There's no Soviet help whatsoever. The British were involved, the Dutch to some extent, but this has really been an American operation from the get-go. And the United States, and much like Stalin and Russia, has no intention of sharing, I guess, the spoils of war, whatever you want to call it, with somebody coming in at the last minute. So this prompts U.S. President Harry S. Truman, 1884 to 1972, to decide to drop the atomic bomb. Atomic bomb had been in development really since before the war, but once the United States is in the war, they see themselves really as kind of in a race with the Germans to develop this first atomic bomb. So they had launched this super secret Manhattan Project, top secret team of scientists who had been working on an atomic bomb since 1942. All right. Hit and miss. There's a really good book, The Making of the Atomic Bomb, by a guy named Richard Rhodes, if you're interested in that. It's very long though, but it's very interesting. The methods they had to kind of try and discard to get these bombs built to the point where they didn't even know if they would really work or not. So it's kind of interesting. The bomb, though, was completed and tested in July of 1945, and this gives Truman another tool in his military toolbox, and he makes the decision. The scientists had built 2 more bombs after the test bomb, and he drops them on August 6, 1945 on Hiroshima, and on August 9, 1945 on Nagasaki.
I saw an aircraft, like a tiny silver drop, entering the sky above Hiroshima. I instantly recognized it as an American plane, as no Japanese aircraft could fly at that altitude at the time. It was just one plane, so I assumed that it was passing by as usual.
And I was counting. 1, 2, 3.
I was wiping the desktop. That was when the bomb was dropped.
It took about 45 seconds from the time the bomb left the airplane until it exploded. And I think there wasn't a man in the airplane that wasn't either timing it with his watch or counting or doing something. I was sure the bomb was a dud. I was sure it wasn't going to work.
After falling for 43 seconds, the time and barometric triggers started the firing mechanism. A uranium bullet fired down a barrel into a uranium target. Together, they started a nuclear chain reaction. Solid matter began to come apart, releasing untold quantities of energy.
by August 15th, with these 2 bombs dropped, the Japanese surrender, and you have what is known as VJ Day, not VE Day. VJ, Victory Over Japan Day. United States gets Japan in the Pacific. Korea is split between the Soviets in the north and the U.S. in the south, and this splitting of Korea is going to set up a flashpoint on the Korean Peninsula that's going to lead to the Korean War. All right, that's it. World War II in the Pacific. Take care. Bye.